property
The
line
property line.
and the zoning line, which are one and the same.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, one of the things about and I explained to Sandy as well, one of the things about the public notice is because Sandy owns both of these lots, and it actually owns the lots on Weathersfield as well, and now owns the Trudell lot. What the assessor's office does is they take all of those and they combine them. They consider them to be common when it comes time to notify abutters. So they notify everyone within 100 feet of that entire expanse, which is everything down to Weathersfield and everything out to the south of Sandy's property.
Process. The person who complained lives on the north side.
Which is within 100 feet
Yeah.
of the property.
Okay.
So that's why you see a huge area being, even though the project is in the very heart of the business park, and frankly, somebody driving, no one, unless they drive into the business park, will see this project from anywhere. So anyway, what we're doing is we're adding building number 2. I think it's about 25,000 square feet. Is an assembly area for switch bay glass. The intention is to expand it by 21,000 square feet. It'll allow Sandy to work more efficiently, and right now he's kind of tripping over himself within this building, and he works almost in an assembly line type of fashion, and this will allow him to work with and expand, not so much expand the business, but run it more efficiently. I don't believe he's actually intending to hire any additional employees. It's just the employees that are in that building will have more room to work. The second part is this building is the front part of it is offices. The rear portion of the building is warehouse. Sandy's intention is to expand that building's warehouse for the tenant which is in there. I'm not sure if you actually got that land leased right now, but it's just future plans. That building's about a 60,000 square foot building. The addition is, I believe it's 11,000 to 12,000 square feet. We had the wetlands line defined by Mike DeRosa, and we located that. We did the survey for it, located it, and Mike just this week went out and he located it in the dead of winter. I think he was out there in January. So when he was out there with Brent, sure enough, there was some skunk cabbage right in this area, which is beyond his line. So he hung some new flags. We located that this week, and we've made an adjustment to the plan. To talk about this a little bit more, the two buildings are about 33,000 square feet, which is the only new impervious surfaces. So we get into stormwater management. Standard 1 is that no untreated stormwater will leave the site. We're directing all the runoff from this into an infiltration system. We've done soil testing in this area and found that we have depth to groundwater. So we're maintaining 4 feet of groundwater in that infiltration system. So there's our treatment, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Standard number 2 is no increase in the rate of runoff. We've provided a hydrologic study that shows for the 2, the 10, and 100-year storm that there's no increase from this back portion of the site. The split in the drainage basin is actually right along this area. The front of the site actually runs to the front, hence being the front of the site, and runs into drainage basins, which are infiltration basins, which are down in this area. So it was convenient because we didn't have to revisit the old drainage report. We just looked at what was running off in this direction, analyzed that, and then by running those two rooftops again through that infiltration basin, that's mitigating for the increase in the rates of runoff, which would occur by the installation of new impervious surfaces. Standard number 3 is infiltration requirement. With 33,000 square feet, we have C-type soils on the site. That works out to require about 600 cubic feet of infiltration. Our basin, I think it's just over 4,000 cubic feet that it infiltrates. Standard number 4 is providing treatment. The treatment is ½ an inch over, which is just ¼ inch for the infiltration, but it's ½ an inch for treatment over impervious surfaces. 33,000 square feet, it works out to be about 1,300 square feet, which is required be infiltrated. Again, we have about 4,000. The reason we're a bit larger is because that 4,000 was what we needed to accomplish the mitigation for the increases in the rate of runoff. So that was really the controlling factor. But that also gave us what we needed to meet standards 3 and 4 for infiltration and for stormwater. From there, and I start to forget the standards. I think 5 and 6 are for critical areas and for levels, and we don't meet either one of those. Neither one of those apply. 7 and 8 are for short-term construction, term erosion control and maintenance, and we have spelled out, we have, I've got it right there, but we have a report which outlines how we'll maintain erosion control on the site, and we plant the site out, getting vigorous vegetation to grow before the erosion control is taken away, and other good housekeeping measures, things like not storing materials in the buffer zone or parking vehicles in the buffer zone, things of that nature. And then there's a long-term maintenance, operation and maintenance. And the one BMP on this project is the infiltration basin. So we spelled out in the report how that will be inspected and maintained over the years. And essentially, with Sandy will be responsible for the long-term maintenance as the owner. And essentially, with an infiltration basin, you inspect it annually. If it's holding water for longer than 72 hours, then you know that it's not working, it's not functioning properly. And essentially, what you would do is you'd go in and clean the sediment off the bottom and reestablish the vegetation. Don't anticipate that will be an annual occurrence. It may happen every, I would say, 5 to 10, maybe even 15 years. But this is just strictly rooftops going into this infiltration basin. It may last a lot longer than that because it won't capture a lot of sedimentation. Sandy's got infiltration basins on the front of the site, and those have all been there for, I think, 10 years now, and those all seem to be operating pretty well. So. So those are, I think that's the overall. We did do, there was a change, Brent, when we did the flags. We found that the 2 stakes that were in, showing where the infiltration basins were, was right on the 2 ends of the basin. And what we found was when we put the new flags in the plan, was that the 25-foot was just clipping the edge of the proposed infiltration basin. So this basin has actually been kicked. I think it's about 10 feet to the northeast. We actually, because we moved it in that direction, and because the grade is climbing it, we also raised the grade of the basin by about 2 feet. So it's been moved about 10 feet this way and about 10 feet up, about 2 feet vertically up. But other than that, it's the exact same basin. So I think that's the project in a nutshell. And I know we're hoping that you may consider closing the hearing and giving us an approval on this evening with some conditions of. We realize that Larry Green has not yet reviewed the drainage, and that could be one condition. And the other condition would be that we file the Form A with the planning board. But if you have any questions, we'd be glad to entertain those.
Brent, you want to start with any questions you have? You've seen the memo.
Well, why don't I read the memo?
No,
I just got it.
Okay. Why don't you take a minute and I'm sure some of what Brent's about to say
Well,
will be from the memo.
why don't we just go over it?
through the comments and questions.
So basically, my review of the project, starting off with the wetlands delineation, revealed that there was the need for 2 additional flagging points to encompass a herd of skunk cabbage that were escaped from the original flag corral and were heading up gradient towards the basin. So that apparently has been done. The submittal of revised plans, which I'm assuming is what that packet is, was probably a little premature since I hadn't authored the following comments. So I offer the following comments and questions in regards to the present review. The project plans lack dimensions for the proposed additions. The application and/or plans lack a breakdown of square footage of disturbance related to this project.
Hang on, Brent, perhaps if we address them in order, it might be,
Well, these are plan.
yeah, I mean, if Mr. Ware, if you have any comment on each of these.
Yeah,
It might
no,
be
we
easier to
do
go
not show
down.
the dimensions, they
Okay.
can be easily added.
Okay, that's what I thought you would say, but
Yeah,
that's
that's
easily
fine.
disposed of. Same thing I would assume
Jump to number
for
2 for the square footage.
breakdown of the
Same,
square
yeah,
footage.
the same
Okay.
thing, yeah.
Yep,
Now, there's a reason for that. The reason for the square footage is because
right.
you need to ascertain as to whether the stormwater erosion control bylaw is applicable here, which I'm sure it probably is. But we need that definitively expressed, both in the filing and on the plans.
Right.
Number 3, the project appears to trigger the need for a SWEP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, but a draft was not included in the application package.
A couple things about that. Number one is, I believe we're just below it. I think we're
Again,
right at like
it's up to you
42,000.
to definitively prove through the submission of figures that are on either a stamped or a
That's correct.
certification.
That's correct. And the
But
second-
also, excuse me,
Go ahead,
you're going to need to do it for the stormwater
Okay.
management pollution and erosion
Sure.
control bylaw, so
Okay.
you may escape the jaws of the EPA, but you're probably not going to escape our bylaw. That was figurative jaws of the EPA. The plans need to reflect the revised BBW delineation, which I believe has been submitted tonight. The 25-foot no cut, no disturbance zone is not correctly labeled on the plans. What is depicted is a 25-foot buffer.
Yeah.
So because that will be a restriction that will be set forth in the order of conditions,
Sure.
we will need that appropriately
That's fine.
labeled, as well as we would suggest some type of hatching or symbolic representation that that is an actual area in between as part of the buffer zone.
Yeah.
Shading or something else like that. There is no depiction of existing or proposed gravel parking storage areas. That is germane in regards to either proposed or existing disturbance, especially in the fact that compacted gravel areas shed more sheet flow than just meadow, grass, or forested areas, and so that would allow evaluation as to whether any areas going along with these additions also need to have either swales or something else for the discharge of sheet flow as it enters the undisturbed, unaltered buffer zone. And then I say this basically the same thing, so just as an explanation on number 8. The plans lack an access drive or leveled area at the corner of building addition for number 2. This is only expressed in anticipation that you may hear a comment from the planning review coming from the fire department or something by the fact that the northeast corner of the addition to building number 2 shows existing contours going down.
Sure.
And not matching where the proposed foundation.
Yeah, I would be
So
surprised.
it's going to be a dip there or something.
Sure, I'd be surprised if that was to be a comment.
Well,
is.
Neither one of us can speculate
For building-
accurately in regards to that. I'm just,
Did you say building number 2?
Yeah.
Talking about this corner?
No, right here,
This corner.
right here.
Okay.
See how
Yeah, okay, I thought you said.
the existing grading seems to parallel the foundation until it gets to this point where it
it dips in.
Yeah.
And therefore the terrain's gonna drop down there and then come back up again. Now, whether, they want to just make that uniform in regards to the site grading, that might also end up being a point that needs to be addressed because it might concentrate runoff from the gravel area.
Right, we'll address that with the fire chief. And we have areas on the site where we have similar grades like that adjacent to the corners of the building.
Right.
The
But
building-
you missed my last words out of my mouth before you commented in regards it may have implications on stormwater runoff,
Understood.
creating an unplanned swale or whatever that might concentrate the sheet flow runoff from the gravel area there. I walked through
Yeah.
an area that was exhibiting erosion and gullying just because of the compacted parking area that's used for storage right now back there as I went down to redo the flagging, so.
Understood. I think the area that you're referring to, we are planning on putting a swale or a catch basin there and taking that water to that pond, if I'm not mistaken.
No, there's nothing depicted currently on the plan, so that would probably help. Yeah, and then I just made a statement, we've already had a discussion about the fact that the property boundaries are anticipated to be adjusted or changed here. I did notice that the DEP has issued a file number for this. I would also recommend that the commission not consider acting upon the applicant's request for closing the hearing tonight, specifically in regards to the fact that not knowing what the planning board process is going to be. Right now, the applicant has the ability, by addressing a few things, of availing themselves to the clause or condition that's within the stormwater erosion control bylaw, where they can get, for lack of a better term, an expedited review, waive of the application fee by both having a technical review done through the planning board process by Mr. Graham, where they look at the regulations for the stormwater erosion control bylaw and roll that into the planning board review, as well as, even though a planning board review is being done, there's a possibility that it may just be a modification to an existing permit. And it's not clear through our stormwater and erosion control bylaw that would qualify for waiving of the application fee for the stormwater management permit, whereas the issuance of an order of conditions, as long as certain things are covered, will allow us to offer you a waiving of the application fee. So,
Well, I guess what I'm...
for that reason, I would suggest that and because we need some information, my recommendation is that the commission continue this, and we just do it as sort of an open continuance, contingent upon the anticipated technical review coming in, as well as the plan revisions.
Well, basically, the engineering information, Charlie, for Graham is done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're trying to do is move the process forward. We're not trying to duck a application fee. We're just trying to get your conditional approval that we're on the right track, and that we can now go talk to the planning board and sort out whether we are going to have to file for a new special permit or for just a modification.
Right.
There is a precedent for just a modification because we've already done this to one of the buildings in the park. We put an addition on it. It had similar disturbance in the 100-foot buffer. It had similar stormwater issues, and it was done through that modification.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's fine. Do you, are you on the planning board agenda?
Yes,
You are, for their next meeting, which is
the 15th.
15th. Any sense of when Larry Graham is going to be able to complete his technical review?
We provided him with plans about a week and a half ago.
Okay,
I would anticipate something from him in the next few weeks.
all right. And so what, I'm sorry, what date are you seeing the planning board?
15th a week from today.
All right, well, our next meeting is the 28th, so we should, that would seem to mean that we'll have planning board input and Larry Graham's input by the 28th. My sense is you're on the right track. You know, it's, none of these things seem like serious impediments.
That's what we're looking for. That's
Yeah.
all we're looking for.
But I think it makes a lot more sense to take Larry Graham's comments into account and, you know, meet with you once more. I don't know why we wouldn't approve it at that point unless Larry Graham has some surprises in mind, but I'm not seeing them. I don't think Brent's seeing them.
No.
Um,
No, and now that I know that he's received a submittal, I will
Right.
copy him
Yeah,
and the planning
I was-
board
I was
on
just gonna
on
say
my
that.
memo.
so he'll have our input as of tomorrow, which will hopefully be helpful.
Sure.
And should be a single review, I think. Because that's, as Brent was just saying, that's what we're trying to do, is get his technical review for the planning board to also deal with stormwater issues,
Sure.
all in one package.
Well, he's the engineer.
He's the engineer, exactly.
I had a sidewalk meeting with Larry the other day about this.
Any other commissioners have any comments? Members of the public, anybody here on this to be heard? So would that be acceptable to the applicant to request a continuance to the next hearing date, which would be, what do they say, the 28th? In anticipation, most likely of being in a position to approve it at that point.
That's fine.
That seems reasonable. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we've requested certain things. It's on their responsibility to
Well, let me
provide
just-
those.
Let me just say one more thing. Mr. Weir, do you see any of these 9 items as being something we won't have answers to by May 28th?
No.
No, I don't either, but as Brent just said, you're the ones who have to provide them. So.
Correct.
All right, in that case, I would need a motion to continue this matter to the next hearing, which is the May 28th hearing. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? We'll see you on the 28th, and we'll get our comments to Mr. Graham tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See you then. Nice fresh air.
Your plan.
Okay. This building has its strengths.
Yeah. Especially since we're on TV.
Yeah, right.
Look like them.
Yeah. More than.
I actually did get this one,
Yeah, but you, unless,
I didn't get this.
Thank you very much.
so, yeah, and town council, some of his finished.
Thank you.
But may I make a recommendation that we read from the agenda announcing the continuance of this item as opposed to, it's already been advertised once. You don't want to, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I see what
Just a little more formal.
Sure,
announcement.
no, that's fine, that makes sense. But we've already done the legal notice. on this
Yes,
one,
legal notice of the regulars.
All right, so this is the 8:15 item on the agenda. It is the new notice of intent, not new to us. This is the second time it's been here. Fourth, no, I'm reading the wrong one. 8:15 item, continued request to determine applicability for 47 Kathleen Circle, map 7, parcel 16, lot 8, Gateway 2 Trust of 1997, John Coughlin, trustee, owned by Raina and Janice Williams. Proposed construction, installation of a subsurface water line within a drainage easement, possibly within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands. And we have a memo on this. Mr. Ware, are you here on this one as well?
Yes,
You
I
are, okay. Have you seen Brent's memo, and have you seen town council's memo?
I just read the town council's memo just now. Brent's memo I read a little bit earlier this evening.
So I think I'm going to take the opportunity to read town council's memo to the meeting. And this is from Judith Pickett, town council, addressed to this commission and the town administrator, dated May 8th, 2013. This is what she writes. The issue concerning the water line to Kathleen Circle was presented to me as a question concerning Conservation Commission or DEP access to 47 Kathleen Circle in order for the commission to make a determination pursuant to an RDA. Also was a question raised whether the applicant had an easement or easement rights in 47 Kathleen Circle. Brent Bazelak, Conservation Commission agent, was given permission to access adjacent property sufficient to make a determination pursuant to the RDA. However, once development commences, it will be necessary for the commission to have physical access to the site. Attorney Pino, who is an attorney who had offered an opinion about ownership, has provided documentation on the ownership issue. However, ownership of the easement or easement rights is not relevant to the wetland determination in this particular instance. This is an issue outside jurisdiction of the commission or of DEP, and so I, meaning Attorney Pickett, will not be reviewing any issues concerning ownership unless instructed to do so. And in our view, or at least in my view, that is consistent with the position we're going to take, that the issues of ownership are beyond our purview, so we're not intending to discuss them at any great length. With that said, Mr. Ware.
That's fine. We did review the location of the water line at the last hearing. Since that time, I think it was it Monday? I think it was actually last week. Brent and I met at
May 2nd, Thursday.
May 2nd, Capco facility, and we walked down into this area, and you could see that there was, and Brent can certainly speak for himself, but I think he outlines our meeting pretty well in the memo he wrote. We walked down into this area, and it was very obvious that the trees weren't leaved out yet. It was pretty obvious to me where the wetlands were. There was pretty healthy growth of skunk cabbage, and then upgrading of that area looked dry. So I think it certainly, as our contention was that the proposed work is certainly in the very furthest outskirts of the buffer zone. One of the things that Brent had discussed with me that day was that was the requirement that this still falls under the town's erosion control bylaw. Am I saying that right? It's the stormwater bylaw.
Yeah, the stormwater bylaw.
And we show proposed erosion control just within the buffer zone. And he had suggested that, the right thing to do on this, given the town's bylaw, is that erosion control is filtered. It can be moved as the project.
Oh.
So rather than just put in 2,000 feet or whatever, it's 1,500 feet, I forget the exact number, but it's between 1,500 and 2,000. Rather than just put 2,000 feet of it in, is to, and we just provided, I realize it's just tonight, we provided in the erosion control sequence and also some notes in an attempt to define for the contractor how that will work, and that the silt fence would go in, or the filterment, as the case may be, would go in. A section of pipe would be installed, backfilled, and at that point it would be mulched and seeded, and then they would move on to the next section and work their way across. So that at any given point, there would be mulch and seed down in any disturbed area. So, and that should help prohibit the migration of soil from that area. I don't know if I have a whole lot to add. You know, Judy Pickett's memo doesn't really offer a lot to, you know, to Ralph's opinion that we have property rights here.
No,
but
she
it
specifically
certainly will
says
have
she
to
isn't
be-
offering an opinion.
No, and we certainly will have to figure out how that's gonna happen. I know Brent has suggested a condition prior to construction. I'll try to paraphrase it if I'm right on this, Brent, please.
I'm gonna
stop
read
me
it
from
anyway.
going. Yeah, but, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I guess we're in a position where we'd like to ask the commission to grant a negative determination and with the conditions that Brent has suggested. And I won't take any more of that time, Brent's gonna read that anyway, so.
Anything you want to add, Brent?
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to review the memo, at least the substantive portion, so I'd skip the first paragraph, but just go through the open terms for the fact that the memo wasn't copied to everybody.
Sure, before you do that, you folks are here on this, I think.
Correct,
right?
that's
Okay.
correct.
All three of you? Okay. So just to kind of bring you up to date on what we're looking at here, Brent will summarize the position of the commission. As you probably have sensed, what we can do and what we can permit or not permit is somewhat limited. We're just a conservation commission. We're not going to determine ownership, or we're not going to permit or not permit a water line. That's not something we can do. So with that said, Brent.
So skipping the first paragraph of my memo, which just outlines the parts of the submittal and the fact that we visited the site on the second, I'll start with the second paragraph. The applicant is proposing to construct or installation of a subsurface water line within a drainage easement within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. The viewing from the adjacent property was fruitful in that leaf out of the understory was minimal, and the wetland resource area was indicated by growing skunk cabbage plants at 6 inches in height or more. While it was impossible to actually measure the distance to the edge of the buffer zone, this is from the drainage easement where the proposed work is to occur, I am confident that the proposed work in the easement is at the outer edge, meaning within more than likely the 80 to 100-foot area of the buffer zone, the outer edge. The topography is level at the site of the proposed work, and it would appear that standard conditions for earth disturbance should be adequate to protect the undisturbed portions of the buffer zone and the adjacent residential lot that lies down gradient from the easement. Third paragraph. The plans lack a professional stamp or certification of preparation. The plan should be revised accordingly and submitted prior to issuance of the determination. Though I don't know if you stamped the plans.
I did, yeah. I didn't realize that the last ones were not stamped
Okay.
at my oversight.
As was also conveyed to Mr. Weir, the town's stormwater management and erosion control bylaw requires that erosion controls be employed where earth disturbance results in erodible soils. A note or plan reference along the proposed pipeline corridor should be added to the plan, and it sounds like that has been addressed appropriately. So, fourth paragraph. Please see the accompanying memo from Town Council received today. As the memo notes, the issue of easement rights is not within the purview of this board. The applicant will have to resolve the question with the deeded property owner, Williams, to the satisfaction of the town. Permission to enter the easement for the purpose of inspection for compliance with the determination will have to be resolved prior to the commencement of work and will be a condition inserted below. In the final paragraph, unless there are additional concerns to be addressed, the commission may wish to consider closing the hearing and issuing a negative determination, option number 3, with the following conditions and receipt within 10 days of revised plans. Number 1, permission to enter the easement at 47 Kathleen Circle for the purpose of inspection for compliance with the determination extended to the Raleigh Conservation Commission and staff to the satisfaction of Town Council and received prior to the commencement of earth disturbance activities. Condition number 2, the Raleigh Conservation Commission's and agents shall have the right to enter and inspect the property at any time for compliance with these conditions in the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Number 3, an appropriately sized spill containment kits or materials for spill cleanup shall be available on site at all times while equipment is on site. Number 4, temporary erosion control used as depicted on the plans to prevent erosion and sediment transport into undisturbed areas or onto abutting property. Number 5, inspection of the erosion control by Raleigh Conservation Commission and staff. Number 6, pipeline trench to be backfilled and stabilized utilizing mulch and or seeding in parentheses to promote revegetation on the same day they are excavated. Number 7, erosion control shall be properly maintained until stabilization of the disturbed areas is accomplished. And notification of the RCC office upon completion of proposed excavating and stabilization efforts. That concludes my memo and suggested conditions.
Would you like to add anything? Do you have anything you'd like to ask or address? Any of you, any of the public?
Yeah. You guys can go first if you like.
Well,
Could
we
you just identify yourself?
Raina Williams.
Okay.
And I understand your role is not to decide if there's access rights to the easement. So what we do is we prepared for you, Mr. Coughlin.
Thank you.
A letter, you're welcome. A copy for you, whether it's relevant or not. Just to say that we disagree with Attorney Pino's findings in terms of him having access.
Thank you.
It's more information for you because I understand you don't have a direct decision on making that. We'll send a copy of that to the town lawyer, your town council as well. But, you know, and as I indicated, we'd be happy to meet and discuss with you, but given everything we've seen, we adamantly disagree that there's
Sure.
any access right
Sure.
to that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was documented and
Yep.
clearly indicated. Yes, Pete.
The only respect in which access directly affects our commission is that we as a commission will condition, at least I expect the vote will be, to condition our permit on us having access, or specifically Mr. Baselak having access, so that we can inspect to make sure that the work, if there is work, is done in accordance with what we want.
And that's
So-
all, the conditions in the memo on page 2 are met, so.
Yes,
I
that's
understand what you're
right.
saying.
It's
there's
just his
kind of
access.
conditional.
There's
to
this
the-
other larger question of access
Yeah, which is
for
the
the
bigger.
water department and Mr. Coughlin, and you're going to have to address that with each other and your council and so forth.
So even though you vote and decide on it, it's still all contingent upon
Yeah,
the,
absolutely.
obviously, 9 or 10 things, including the number one, right to access. So
Yes.
nothing can be done on that until it's clearly established and town council has proof that that's been granted.
That's
Okay.
right. Then, and that will, I'm sure, be dealt with by Mr. Coughlin and Mr. Ware and their attorneys as part and parcel of the same question.
Sure.
That access for them is going to include access for us, or
Thanks
there
for
won't be any
explaining
access.
that.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I do.
Could you identify
Yeah,
yourself?
my name is Jack Switson. I live at 54 Kathleen Circle, which is across the street from Jan and Raina. And basically, I think I have more questions for Mr. Coughlin, Mr. Weir. I missed the first meeting, so I'm not sure what else was introduced. So my first question is was the easement that Mr. Ashley granted to Mr. Coughlin introduced as part of this project?
Before.
Well, it's actually very similar. We don't address the question of whether the easement exists.
Well,
All we needed.
The reason I asked this question is because
Sure.
in that easement, it specifically requires Mr. Coughlin to basically put a road across Mr. Ashley's property, and a 20-foot wide road.
That's a good question, but not for us.
Well, I mean,
hang on.
wouldn't that affect is
No,
there any other
just-
wetlands along that?
No, because all we needed and all we got was permission to enter Mr. Ashley's land to do this inspection, okay? So we got that permission. Without that permission, Mr. Baselak couldn't have entered his land, but it was simply permission to enter. Again, it's not our role to decide if there's an easement or what the terms of the
No,
easement are.
my question is, if he puts in a 20-foot wide road where this water pipe is going, is that gonna impact any other Conservation Commission areas along that long line?
If he were to put in such a road, he'd have to come back to us and ask for permission if it affected any wetlands. So, and nobody has applied for any such thing.
Okay, well,
I'm gonna offer the opinion, since Mr. Weir and I walked the existing woods road that are out there, although I wasn't doing an actual sweep 100 feet from that roadway, visually, I did not see any indications that there might be a jurisdictional buffer zone that was coming and intersecting the woods road that we use to walk and access that. I saw no indications that there was the possibility of a regulated resource area coming up and intersecting with where the proposed, which is why the application was only for the drainage easement on 47 Kathleen Circle.
So that is an opinion that is not binding, because it hasn't, there is no application pending to do it, but at least in Mr. Baselak's opinion, it doesn't look like any road in there, in that location, would affect wetlands. And that would be the end of our involvement. If it doesn't affect wetlands, then we're not involved, other than stormwater management and erosion control, which is a different subject and is you know, much more limited requirement. So, but we can't comment on something that they haven't applied for, and they haven't applied for it, and if Mr. Baselak's right, they aren't going to need to apply for it to us. That answer your question?
it does.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add, or anyone else?
No.
Mr. Weir, any comments?
Just for a point of clarification, there is no requirement, there was an easement granted, an access easement granted to Mr. Ashley, but there's no requirement that Mr. Ashley can exercise that access easement, but there's no requirement that John build anything for Mr. Ashley.
That's not what the easement says.
Yeah, it's right here. It says, beginning at the property known as Kathleen Circle and end of the grantor's property line shall be as is allowed by our covered with a graded driveway material. The purpose for which is to allow pedestrian and vehicular access and egress to pass and repass on foot and by motor vehicle.
Okay, I believe that's on the other end. So.
On the
No,
other
that's
end,
through
it
Ashley's whole
says
property.
Ashley.
Right.
This is with the town March 2011.
And
And then I stand corrected, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, it's an interesting question, but not one for us.
Okay.
It's
Understandable.
something, essentially, the engineers, the owners, and the attorneys are going to have to work out among themselves. Anything else germane to what we're doing here? Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? Any commissioners or members of the public? Mr. Weir, Mr. Coughlin, Mr. Baselak?
If I could just say one thing. The clear intent is to put a water line from our property up through Ashley's out to Kathleen Circle. What is driven the bus is the town fire department and the town water department wanting to loop in that whole corner. And we have no intentions, and if there's some language in there that's disturbing you, I will bring it before the principals in our organization to take that out. What we're attempting to do, let me paraphrase that, is take connect to our water line at the bottom and bring it up to Kathleen Circle. What is driven the bus on this is the fire department and the town water department wanting this done to loop your water system through. We have a couple other options that we can do. We've already built the pump station and the lines are all in at the base of our development. We can put a booster pump in. Another alternative that we looked at is running the line down, running a larger line down Route 1, roughly from the Agawam Diner to the base of our site, tying in to bring more water flow down there, but it accomplishes nothing. So this developed with the fire department, and Charlie, you chime in if I'm saying anything, we're talking.
We've been involved with this for a long time, right? You remember us from the.
Yeah, no, so there's no intent to put a road in or anything else.
Well,
No, but if there's language.
You can understand our concern seeing that, correct?
No, I very much do, and that could be changed. It has nothing to do with this board, but it's something that we get together together
Right,
and
if you-
change.
In fact, if you guys want to talk for a little bit after this meeting,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to do so.
That's fine.
Well, why don't you avail yourselves of that? You're all here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm taking your time.
Yeah,
You
sorry.
have-
And we need to,
No, and I knew this was not the agenda to talk about it,
Yeah.
but I did want
it's
to,
good to
Yeah,
have
no,
a
we
better
understand that.
understanding, and I
That's okay, fine.
appreciate
We
the
understand that.
clarifying that. And
So if there's nothing further that involves us, I encourage you to keep your lines of communication open, but we need to move on. So what I would need on this is a motion to close the hearing and issue a negative determination, option number 3, with the 8 conditions listed in the memo, and conditioned upon receipt in 10 days of revised plans. But I think actually the revisions, the plans are already there, are they not, Mr. Ware?
They are, but
There were
certainly,
just 2 things.
certainly Brent will,
But I need to review.
he needs
Yeah,
to review.
okay,
So
so
I just
there were
need-
2 points, and I think you covered,
I
the
think I
votes.
covered them, and if
Okay.
Brent believes
All
that
right.
we covered them.
So do I have a motion?
May I?
Yes. Excuse me.
I just want to request that we include a declarative statement that we are not confirming the delineation of the bordering vegetated wetlands or buffer zone
Oh,
by this
yeah.
decision.
Yeah, absolutely, because you didn't, yeah, no, right, okay.
Of any ordering, not the.
Of any, yeah.
Well, the resource area is depicted upon this
On
plan,
this plan.
plan 47 Kathleen Circle. We are not confirming those as being the legal boundaries of either bordering vegetated wetlands or the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. We are solely conditioning the proposed work.
I think we sort of routinely try to include that when we're in a position like this.
Right,
Yeah.
that's why I just
So, yeah,
mentioned it, because I forgot to put
Okay, so do I have a motion with that in mind? And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and all against? Motion carries.
oh, yeah, okay.
All right, thank you very much, folks.
thank you,
Okay,
sorry,
thank you, guys.
thanks for your time.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'll get together. That'd be great.
Okay, fine, thank
That'd be
you.
good.
Yeah, I'm going away though for a while.
All right. Sure, we'll see if we can get it done soon. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Take care.
You're gonna litigate and shake hands on the way out. Brent, did you get, and that one we just finished, did you get this? And we need to make that part of the record because it was handed in. Yeah. You set?
Thanks, Tom. I handed something out to you folks, didn't I?
Yes. You gave us your May 2nd memo. No, I think that's the only thing though.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is the 8:30 item on the agenda, the continued enforcement order for 12-40 Forest Ridge Drive, map 7, parcel 9, Gateway 2 Trust of 1997, John Coughlin trustee. And we have Mr. Coughlin here. Mr. Ware, are you here on this also?
Yeah.
Okay. So in our papers, we have a May 2nd, 2013 memo from Brent. Have you folks seen this memo?
No,
Mr. Ware,
this
Mr.
was-
Coughlin?
This was distributed to the commission
Okay.
only.
I think you also, however, sent an email to
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin, which summarizes essentially the same point.
Yes.
And you, I take it you have both seen that email. It was from yesterday or the day before?
We've had a few things going on. Can you just kind of brief what we're talking about in this memo? Not to,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's fine. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Brian. I don't have a copy of it here, but.
Okay, would you like me to read the emailed letter?
Well, how about if you summarize it? Because I think it just, Mr. Coughlin wants to know which one we're talking about.
Right. We had a phone conversation today, Mr. Coughlin, where I alerted you to the fact that I had sent you an email, copied to Elaine Kent, copied to Charlie Weir, and copied to Mike DeRosa. And this is in regards to the enforcement order issued and specifically applicable to 70 Forest Ridge Drive, but with the commission's deliberations here this evening, it may also be germane to 12-40 Forest Ridge Drive action also. And this is in regards to a site visit held on Thursday, May 2nd at approximately 8:20 in the morning, where it appeared upon examination of the site that there was the apparent manipulation of a previously survey located wetlands delineation flag number 241. That is the flag that I had utilized to determine that the expanding toe of slope of the landscape dump pile had intercepted and passed into the 100-foot regulated buffer zone. It's a resource area under our bylaw and a regulated area under the Wetlands Protection Act. We discussed at the site visit not only the location where I believe the flag had originally been and measured from that and determined that the expanding toe of slope of the dump pile was 80 feet up gradient from where flag number 241 had originally been. But we also discussed that there would be the installation of an erosion control silt fence at a minimum 50 feet up gradient from the delineated bordering vegetated wetlands, and that further up in closer proximity to the pile of landscape debris, that a construction site mesh fencing would be recommended to be installed in order to catch dislodged material that might start rolling down the slope and to try and, number one, keep it from busting up the silt fence, as well as also control those materials and keep the removal operation from having to go too far down slope and possibly have material drop into the intermittent stream. So further, I offered the recommendation in consultation with Chairman Watson and Vice Chair Turner that we require a professional surveyor to reestablish the wetland flags for the BVW delineation in that area using flagging of a different color as it previously been used, and with the stipulation that any and all previously existing wetlands flagging be left in place and untouched. The professional surveyor shall prove the status of their credentials and certify by affidavit the reestablishment of the delineation from the record of conditions plan of land to accompany an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation located in Raleigh, Mass., prepared for John Coughlin, dated July 1st, 1999, and revised September 10th, 1999 by Meridian Engineering. I believe that is the base plan that was first approved for an order of resource area delineation that had this delineation first represented on it, and that was subsequently carried through. Although if the project engineer knows of a change in that, I'd be happy to entertain that, since I've only been connected with the project for the last 9 years. The professional survey shall also establish all applicable site characteristics of the landscaping dump pile, including all scattered debris around the toe slope, especially all concrete and other solid waste items the same size as a case of paper or larger. So basically requiring a surveyed plan of this dump site location that includes a recertification of where the wetlands flagging that is germane to this area of the site. Next paragraph, So the RCC requests that until such time as notified by the Raleigh Conservation Commission or agent of the Raleigh Conservation Commission in writing, no removal or earth disturbance activities shall occur at the dump site. Further, the Raleigh Conservation Commission requests that the previous engineer whose services are associated with the apparent faulty measurements related to jurisdiction be released from the project, and that the RCC receive qualifications of a new professional engineer whose services will be engaged to remove and remediate the impacted buffer zone at the dump pile site. And then I go conclude with, please be advised that the Raleigh Conservation Commission shall consider the same stipulation related to the impacted site at 12-40 Forest Root Drive at the frontage of Newburyport Turnpike Route 1 relating to a professional survey and reestablishment of wetlands flagging and survey description detailing the extent of impacts to regulated wetland resource areas, state and local. I requested a reply to acknowledge receipt. Had not received a reply, but held a follow-up phone call at 10:45 with Mr. Coughlin.
Today.
Where we discussed this yesterday.
All
Discussed this and went over this verbally over the phone.
So, Mr. Coughlin or Mr. Weir, what would you like to add?
Nothing at all. Brent and I discussed this morning,
Yeah.
and my clear intent was, and I had already talked to Charlie about it, is if Charlie's company would be to get Meridian back out to reflag it, which I want to do anyways, where there's some questions about the current flagging. We had met with Brent, and we had delineated where the erosion control, the filtration barrier wants to go. I agreed with Brent 100% on the fact that prior to moving any material, removing any of the compost material out of there, that we would put, as he said, a construction fence. I've been discussing it with a few of our people in our company that do it. They have the plastic construction fence, but everybody seemed to be under the mindset that the best thing to place there would be the hard wooden snow fence with wooden stakes, because as they start pulling the compost material out, if anything starts to roll, that will catch it. And that's what Brent and I had talked about, because we don't want it to go down and hit the filtration barrier. So, if it's permissible to the board, I would ask Meridian Engineering to get their wetlands people out there, reflag the line along that area, and do some shots of the pile.
I think, just for the record, we're not the company that's been with it, so I'm not sure who did it. I think what Brent is looking for is just the reestablishment of the flags.
Yeah, by survey location, not a new wetlands
Right,
delineation.
so which we have all of that information in our records, so we can reestablish.
Okay.
By,
Yeah, no, we're not thinking of requiring a redelineation.
right.
Okay, I'm sorry, maybe I said it
Well,
wrong.
that's
And I
all
think
right.
there's
If you-
probably only-
If you wish to do one, it's
Yeah.
your property, but that's more time and more expense.
Yeah,
And,
I think there's probably only 3 or 4 flags which would need to go in.
well,
I would actually suggest that based on our discussions where the access pathway was starting by the steel gate, that whatever delineated BVW flagging is perpendicular to where the paved end of the cul-de-sac and the gate is, because wasn't that where the pathway was coming up, or was it a little beyond that? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
We discussed
Well, if you
where
Yeah,
where
I
that
got
Where the
access
gate
was.
is, that path
Right,
that
and
we
the
talked
way the
about
circle
goes
was,
back.
yeah.
Right, so
Okay,
that,
I got it.
so that may encompass maybe 300 lineal feet,
Yeah.
but only that
So
BVW
it might
line
be
that's
like
on
10
that side of
flags.
the stream.
But I follow you.
Yeah.
So if Meridian Engineering goes in and rechecks the flags, correct?
Rehangs them.
Rehangs them with a different color flag. We have the where every flag is there right now, those, I believe, the colors we saw when we were out there Thursday, a pink, they go with yellow or orange or something different.
Right.
They reflag them, then we look at that line, you're acceptable with that, then we can go in, put the filtration and put the fence in.
As I said right now, you can go in and put, I'm recommending to the commission, maybe we should get the commission
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
to vote
Well,
on this,
no, I think-
and then we can say.
At least I think it all makes sense, and I'm not hearing any commissioners
Now, do you
thinking
need,
otherwise yet, so let's.
do you need any
let's talk through
paperwork
it.
from Meridian on this?
Well, not so much paperwork as flags.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but,
I'm sure Charlie has a brief summary of the qualifications of their survey
Oh, yeah,
crew
so-
that he can provide for
Okay,
us.
that's
and-
fine.
And
And
you're
the-
looking for an affidavit, and I heard that, I heard in that.
Well, if it's a
search
stamped, if it's a stamped plan,
ensues- Which will be.
that will provide, but I just put that in there in case
It
something
sounded
wanted
like
to be
you
done
wanted,
different.
you wanted the mulch pile located on it.
Absolutely, yes.
yeah, so
Survey,
that's,
survey located, so we know the extent and the,
Are you comfortable doing everything he needs done here?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. I mean, what about the handling? I don't think he's looking for a plan to handle the material.
well, we will be in the future, but we're saying that at
This is
at
step
this
one.
point in time, everything's gotta stop.
We can talk.
We've gotta figure
Okay.
out what the extent of the intrusion is, what the characteristics of that
Sure.
tile that extends into the buffer zone.
Yeah.
I would also suggest 100 feet up from the flag in question, number 241.
Mhm.
So, I would suggest that whole extent of the line, and then a survey that also establishes where the toe is slope, what the extent, the width, just basically
delineate the
giving us a
pile,
whole
Yeah,
description
exactly.
of the leading
fix the
edge.
flags.
And more than likely,
the-
you will probably want to characterize that dump pile a little bit beyond that, so
Yeah.
you actually know the extent and the nature
Yeah.
of what you're dealing with. But I'm saying, I believe from what happened out there, that we need to get back and establish our trustworthy points that we make our decisions from.
oh, and I'm happy to hear that Meridian will be doing it, and I don't think there's anything in this that Brent's outlining that would be, beyond the scope of work that your firm often does, so
Right.
it seems doable.
Sure.
Now, in terms of whether you put up the erosion control and the fence before or after that happens, I think that was a question you had asked, but I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that.
I made the statement that I felt that that could be done.
Yeah,
I
don't-
didn't see why
I don't see
that
why
would
not.
have any bearing on
Right.
what happens with this, so I
Right.
wanted to allow Mr. Coughlin, and we discussed that at the site,
Yep.
and we chose the location and the extent. And if the construction mesh fencing is upgraded to snow fencing, which is probably a good idea, because the wire probably has a greater tensile strength than that plastic
You know what I'm
mesh.
talking about, the wood,
Yes, I do.
42-inch high
Yep.
snow fence.
Yep,
And we'll
so
put in
that'll be fine,
3/4 steel rods.
that's an upgrade,
That
yep.
would be smart.
Now, well, one of the other things, and I just wanna make sure we don't step on our foot, if you take the area after the compost pile, there were cut up logs. We saw them up there, Brent, maybe
Mhm.
1 foot, 2 foot, and they went down, they were scattered in.
Yeah.
My maintenance guys told us when we were up there, why don't we pick those up out of that area and push them in, so when they pull out the compost, they pull that in.
That's fine.
So, they-
But I'm looking for that material to be characterized and noted on this survey plan.
Right, no.
Even if it's just, like, using an example, this line of chairs, even if it's just something that says line of chairs.
Right, no, and then the other issue is that we wanna do, coming down that trail that we walked down, a complete rubbish pickup from all the litter and everything.
Yeah, that's.
All right, well, I
You
just
can-
don't wanna be
You can always
doing.
pick up litter.
Okay, fine, thank you.
We'll always
All right.
let you do that. As
Thank
long as no pruning shears or
All right.
brush hogs are used when you pick up the litter.
Okay.
Okay. So, any commissioners, anybody else have any, excuse me, comments or questions? Anything else you folks want to add?
Nope. Okay.
All right. Do you think that you want to be on the next meeting, May 28th? 3 weeks? Yeah.
May I seek a clarification just before you make that step?
Yeah.
I've made a recommendation, I was seeking the commission's confirmation that we should also have a survey plan of the nature and extent of the clearing at the
Oh, yeah, no, we're
Route
gonna,
1 Newburyport frontage.
I think we want to vote on all that, but I just wanted to get a sense of what the continuance date might be for this.
Yeah, that's fine. That's the way to get it done, the better it is.
3
We
weeks
do
is
it.
realistic for you, Mr. Burke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think in addition, what you're asking for, Brett, is a survey plan of the disturbed area, which Mike Della Rosa has given you his rebuild permit plan on, right?
Right, I've received his proposed restoration
Yeah.
plan, but I'd like to have a surveyed plan that then we can put, in a
Is that a
sense,
big deal
put
on
that
that?
on top
Yeah,
of.
let's just go, and I drove by that today, and it's not a terribly big area.
No, no,
So
and
you-
and again, that's just so we can understand the nature
Okay.
and extent of how much square footage of buffer zone and BVW has been impacted there and have a good,
Are you talking about the one on
I'm
Highway
talking
1?
the frontage.
On Route 1?
Yes.
Okay.
So you want Charlie to do a survey of the disturbed area? Am I correct, Brent? I just wanna know what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, you okay doing that, Charlie?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
If you have any questions about what we're looking for, you'll talk to Brent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
that's
did you
fine.
want the wetlands re-flagged in that area as well? I thought that's what I heard you say, but if,
you know, I think it probably should be. It's mainly going to be probably exactly where the erosion control line
right,
has been established.
it's probably 4 or 5 stakes.
Right, so that's all in that area, because I think we're all in agreement that if it isn't impacted BVW right along the ditch there, then everything else is impacted buffer zone, no cut, no disturb area, as well as conservation restricted
Right.
area, so,
Okay.
so yeah, it's just we'd like to know the nature and extent
All right.
of what happened there,
Okay.
so the restoration plan can be appropriately fitted upon that.
That's fine.
Well, as serve as a warning for the future contractors coming in.
Excuse me. All right, so, and you did think 3 weeks was realistic? That was
Yes.
it. Okay. So I think we have already affirmed the issuance of the enforcement order. What-
Right, but in a sense, we're amending it a little bit here
Okay.
because we've basically gone into more specificity in regards to the restoration plans needed for both areas. So I would look at this as the commission just confirming this as an amendment to the requirements.
Okay, so it would be a motion to amend the requirements of the enforcement orders in accordance with the discussions at this meeting. I think that's
And
about the only one.
and the
we can-
letter that's already been issued.
And the email letter from Brent to
you got a copy of that,
to
too?
Mr.
Yeah,
Collins.
he emailed it to me.
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, okay. And that, I think that memo was inclusive of the need for a survey to establish the.
Yeah, well, I said
Ah, yeah.
the commission would be considering,
Yeah.
all of this.
Okay, all right. So all of that, and then plus to continue, I think, both the enforcement orders to May 28th, correct? Yeah. Okay. Anything I'm leaving out? No, that's-
I don't believe so.
So do I have a motion to that effect? And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I'm gonna do is put this down as just two separate motions for each enforcement order.
Yeah. So that, for the record, that was also the 845 item, a separate continued enforcement order for 70 Forest Ridge Drive. That discussion included that as well. That is map 7, parcel 10, lot 51, Gateway 2 Realty Trust in 1997, John Coughlin trustee. Good night.
Okay, so let's continue, right?
Where do we stand in getting that contract in
I think we did not get his name and address until too
Well,
late for.
yeah, and I've notified him, but
You mean the guy on Route 1?
Yeah, the
parcel?
coastal landscape.
Right.
They have been emailed, basically the same enforcement order that was issued to Mr. Coughlin for that clearing of the frontage. I left it non-specific in terms of attendance or whatever, because really with Mr. DeRosa and Mr. Weir, they are now covering the, what do I want to use the term for, the most substantive portion of what we need to have done. As to whether coastal can do anything, I'm sure that Mr. Coughlin will talk to them when it comes time for plants to be done and put in the ground. He more than likely will probably make them put the plantings and stuff in, but this,
I'd be inclined to give them a fine to get them in here to talk with us.
Or at least summons them in.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
well, they have been, they've been told to contact me or whatever, so I
Okay.
can see if I can get them in. for the next
As I
meeting.
recall, it took Mr. Coughlin a few more days than it should have to get us the contact information for him.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not on tonight's agenda, but there's no reason they shouldn't be.
Right, because basically the letter just went out.
Right. And there's no reason they shouldn't be in at the next one now. I think that's, is that what your thought is? Yeah. I think they need to hear it. Agreed?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a lot, it's not that much different than the tree cutting situation with the Topsfield people who should have known that when they were dealing with.
Except they did stop when they
I
were
was gonna
asked.
say, if you had
That
stopped
makes
and
a
talked to
difference.
them on Friday, they would have been stopped on Friday. As soon as I talked to them, the very second I talked to them and said, I'm the conservation agent, do you have a permit for doing this work in a regulated wetland resource area? They're like, no.
We wound up.
I guess we're not done to do any more today, are we?
We wound up finding that tree company. And
Yes.
Yeah, but that was for,
Yeah, in my view, it was largely for ignoring a lawful order. I mean, that was the egregious part of it. But that said, I think these landscape companies need to be told when they do this, they need to be told face to face that this isn't acceptable. And that there's a price for it. Because they're the ones who carry it out. We never know what order they're getting from the owner, but they're the ones who perform the work, so.
we made sure Stakowitz, however it's pronounced, came in before us a number of years ago. And
Right. We haven't seen him since.
We haven't had any problems
I know.
since.
That's been good. All right, you must be Miss Cohn. Welcome. So this is the 9 o'clock item, which is your item. This is a new enforcement order, 183 Rear Haverhill Street, map 16, parcel 56, lot 1, and Cone, Belcott. Altering by cutting and clearing of placement of fill in approximately 400 square feet of bordering vegetated wetlands, 310 CMR 10.55 and local. Altering approximately 3,000 square feet of 100-foot buffer zone to BVW 10.02 and local, and containing approximately 1,000 square feet of restricted 25-foot no-cut, no-disturb zone. Conservation Commission number 63-426. Failure to provide proof of recording certificate of compliance, 63-426. Ms. Cohn, you want to come forward and talk to us?
Well, I assume you have discussed things since, because the drawings that.
Well, we haven't as a commission.
actually, it may be good for me to jump in here.
Yeah, because
because
you know
we-
more, because we went over it and
We've made,
it's kind of different than what.
we've made substantial progress in first off,
So just so you understand, Brent has talked about it with me as chairman, but we only meet every 3 weeks.
Right.
So the rest of the board isn't as up to date on those discussions as I might be, and so we'll, if with your permission, we'll let Brent sort of bring us all up to date, and then you
No,
can,
that would be
you can chime
fine, that
in.
would- yeah.
Okay. So go ahead, Brent.
okay, well, so let me just briefly just give an overview of the reason for the issuance of this enforcement order. And we'll be utilizing the town's pictometry from 2012 and 2007. Ms. Cohn, who is now Mrs.
Belka.
Belka, was developing and constructing a project that she originally got an order of conditions from the commission for, I think 2003, 2004 time period, for construction of an indoor riding arena, stables, various assortments of paddocks, an outdoor sand arena, and the originally applied for order. See if I can find where the sketch was on this. Also had anticipated that the construction of a single-family dwelling on the property might be included. This is from the certificate of compliance request. That the construction of a single-family dwelling might also was included in the project, but it turns out that was outside the jurisdictional area. But there were proposed additional paddocks. And how I got involved in this was discovering that the order of conditions had expired in 2007, and in 2008 contacted the applicant in regards to this. And she came in, and this sketch was submitted because, except for an originally surveyed plan that had to do with an order of resource area determination, there were no surveyed plans ever developed for the proposed construction activities on the site. And apparently the commission approved, issued an order, and even amended it based on sketches that were put depicting the proposed activities in relationship to where the bordering vegetated wetlands had been delineated on the parcel. And so when I discovered the order had expired and contacted Mrs. Belka, she came in with a certificate of compliance request because, of course, that was a requirement of the order, and once it's expired, there's no way to resurrect an order. And at that time, the reason these are highlighted in yellow is because she wanted the commission and myself to be aware that there was parts of the project that hadn't been done at that time in 2008. And I produced a memo which even details the fact that the commission could anticipate a request to determine applicability for these paddocks which are highlighted in yellow, because that work was shown as being substantially within the 100-foot buffer zone, as it was understood at the time. So come 2013 here, when I go to look at another property that the Zoning Board of Appeals wanted me to comment on, adjacent to this lot, I saw that the paddocks had been extended, and I didn't have any recollection of any type of filing or permit application. So that caused me to then go back and seek the pictometry that was closest in time period to this, to look at it, look at the relationship of the building, the stable portion of the arena, and look at the sketch that was submitted. And I used that to make a best guess that it appeared that there certainly had been the possibility of impact to buffer zone. There may have been the impact to the no cut, no disturb area. And there also may have been bordering vegetated wetlands impact. But the problem was I was using this sketch, and I could only go by these depicted sides and corners of the building and project them up here. Well, it turns out that the on-the-ground situation is much better than what I speculated and used in coming up with the enforcement order and the action. But I've had the cooperation from Mrs. Belka right from day one, and she first off immediately recorded the certificate of compliance because we discovered that that had not been recorded at the registry, so that's been done. She also then invited me and allowed me to rattle around in the bushes for about 2 hours on her property one afternoon.
Given that we found flags that I couldn't find.
Well, I was going to say,
there.
and the very good news is that I was able to locate the two wetlands flags that are in closest proximity to where the new paddocks were put in. And I was also then, I wasn't able to find the next 2 flags, but then the 2 subsequent to that I was able to find, which allowed me to then make a rough projection by taping off and going. So from a scenario where I thought that bordering vegetated wetlands was substantially impacted, we've gone down now to where basically an excavator bucket wide, so I'm going to say 10 to 12 square feet of the very end of the BVW has been impacted, and that may have been, don't exactly know why it was done, but some like riprap stone got put in there. I have a feeling it may have been just to provide an attempt to provide supposedly a swale just to help, but it's not very deep. It's only 6 or 8 inches deep. So the BVW impact has gone down to probably 12 square feet. Now, the paddock fence is 18 and 19 feet respectively off the two residual knots of BVW flagging. So there isn't a 25-foot no-cut, no-disturb zone there. One also needs to consider that when the paddocks were originally established, and I'm pretty sure she had a conversation with the commission at the time, it was understood that the paddock fencing that is all to the south of the wetlands was all established a little further out as much as possible than the 25 feet to allow pruning and just a maintenance strip, in other words, so that vegetation could be cut back. When the fence line turned the corner and started going due north for these expanded paddocks, apparently when they started, they inadvertently ended up coming too close. But there's still the potential of at least maintaining a 12 to 14 foot no cut, no disturb there, but it would need to just be reestablished. There are no markers. There has been some intrusion along there's been some intrusion here along this fence line. More than likely something fell over or something and it got pushed back, and it got pushed back in further than the 4 to 5 feet that was being allowed for maintaining. But obviously most of this situation can be easily correctable from the standpoint of the possible consideration of a requirement to put some 4x4 posts with the no cut, no disturb sign, because there's no monumentation, there's no marking of where the no cut, no disturb area is. So, and there's also potential for restoration of that little 12-foot impact into the bordering vegetated wetlands by removing the small amount of riprap stone, which is probably maybe 2 wheelbarrows full, and then putting in organic material, loam mixed with peat or composted cow manure to just fill that gouge back up again. So that's the small consideration, and I discussed that on the site when I was there. The larger issue that I didn't know how to say, and this is for the commission to think about and discuss tonight, is that these paddocks, which have shed buildings and everything, and this clearing was all done without a permit. And I believe the commission, when they considered the certificate of compliance, anticipated the submittal of a request to determine applicability. Because it was part of the original project, and the original project was permitted before our bylaw. And so therefore, at that time, the buffer zone was just a regulated area, or it wasn't a protected resource area. Because normally today, for a commercial project clearing buffer zone, there would be a disturbance fee, and there'd be the requirement for a notice of intent application, because it's a protected resource area, not just a regulated area, as it is under state law. So tonight, I was hoping that the commission could decide how they wished to handle the establishment of those paddocks and discuss that. Except for the fact that the paddock fence line in that one location is a little closer than would allow a 25-foot no cut, no disturb. It's a very small width of BVW there. It's basically a fingerling projection of BVW, and most all the other paddock clearing and the establishment of the fences and the sheds and stuff is 25 feet or more away from the edge of BVW. In other words, you folks would normally not have had a problem issuing the permit.
Right. So had she applied, had you applied at the time, it seems highly likely we would have issued a permit to build exactly what you built, with the exception of a fence that is slightly mislocated. Is that fair summary?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
That's-
here again, I believe so, because you know, my normal procedure, even with an RDA, is to put a stipulation in there that once the erosion control is established, I go out to the site and inspect it. And so, you know, I can't for sure say I would have caught this fact, that
Right.
this got to be closer than it should have been, but, okay. But I guess what I'm also trying to say is that realistically, it's not a bad, it's not a terrible fact that this fence line is a little closer there, because actually it appears that they kind of stop in terms of doing the clearing of the 4 to 5 foot area, and it actually, I think that's more of a maintenance walkway, right? It's not where the horses are actually coming right up to the edge of the paddock.
No, so the building and the rail fence are here, and then that fence was put in afterwards to keep, because we have a little go-between, and there's shed road doorways that open that way, so that you can get in and feed them and so forth. But then I realized that they can get loose that way. So then about 5 foot off the building, we put a fence that goes down and it comes back to the building, so they can't, if they did get loose, they're stuck in this little, you know, contained area where we won't lose them. So that was, you know, kind of the reason for that. However, I mean, I feel like I would never disturb the wetlands knowingly. This all sounds not good. When we talked about originally with me doing the whole thing, I understood it was an order of compliance or something, and I should comply to finish the project, because I didn't finish it, so I signed whatever I need. Of course I was, of course I should do that. I didn't know that. I'll do that. I did it. I guess I didn't file. I thought I had. But then life goes on, and my understanding was always that I had as long as I stayed 25 foot out of the wetlands, that this was kind of where my silt fence is still there. It's probably not supposed to be, but it's like entwined in poison ivy, and I have it all over me now from being out there. But it was
pretty
in there.
buried, actually.
So right, and then that little thing that there is a swale that I have there that was kind of his natural swale, but I think that's what the guy was doing, was and I was not there when he did this, and all those buildings are brought in on a truck. There's, one of them's fairly large, but the guy has a truck that will roll the building right off where you want it to. So I built nothing, but they were brought in. And also, I was under the impression that I could put a run-out shed sort of anywhere outside of the 25 no cut. But, now I know I'm sort of talking in ancient history because my thing expired, which I didn't understand expired. And now the 100-foot buffer zone is like really what I'm supposed to be paying attention to, which I didn't understand that. I thought that's kind of
Well, that's all true, but still, had you come back to us in 2008,
I understand
I
that
feel
it
that we probably would have allowed you to
Oh,
do
of course.
precisely what you did.
Right. I understand that, but I thought
Other than a 4-foot
So that's a good
error in location,
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. It certainly would be better had you come back. And what Brent told me, and I sort of recall this, I was on the commission then, and I think
Yeah, I
several
think I
members were-
recognize everybody here, actually.
Probably not quite everyone.
No.
Was that the understanding was that when you wanted to do that, you would come back to us. Now, and
Did I come before you again after I built it?
No,
No.
but he's referring, remember I showed you in the
No.
memo that I had written in 2008? I even made a
Yeah.
statement about the paddocks being highlighted in yellow, that you would be filing a request to determine applicability
Okay.
at the
whenever-
time when you actually were going
Whenever you
to
decided.
clear and do that.
Right,
So-
I was very concerned with losing my single-family house, lot at that time, so I was scrambling around trying to get the building inspector, and he's
Yes,
actually
yes.
said to me, why would you apply for the permit now? Why don't you wait, because you're gonna pay for it probably 10 times over before you build it. Are you ready to build it? No, I'm not. So apply, it's probably not gonna be that hard to reapply when you need to. So I think my head was
Well,
wrapped around my losing
sure.
my single-family thing, and the rest of it, I
Well,
don't want to say that I didn't think it was meaningful.
Just didn't register.
it was.
Well, I think that's an understandable mistake, and if you had built something, it would be different if you had built something without a permit that we would not have permitted. We would have asked for something different or some adjustments to it. It seems likely to me that your only significant error was not getting the permit. It wasn't what you built. So to me, it puts it in a somewhat different light. And I think, Brent, you would probably agree. Commissioners, anybody have a different sense of things? And certainly, we appreciate the fact that when this is brought to your attention, you worked with Brent and did everything that you could do about that.
Well, we both trudged around out there trying to find the flags, and he actually said you might find a knot, and I had looked around quite a bit before, and I didn't think so, but they were.
Brent's
They
good
were
at
there,
that.
yeah.
He's also good at avoiding getting poison ivy. I don't know what
Yeah.
his trick is.
And ticks and whatever, I don't know how.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I think that's a job qualification. He's immune to all these things. I get poison ivy driving by your house. So what do you think we should do to wrap this up? Is there anything?
Well, the larger substantive question is, do you wish to require after-the-fact permitting by the submittal of a request to determine applicability for the paddocks and turnout sheds, or, yeah,
I don't see the reason for it.
okay.
I mean, I think if what we're trying to get is participation in our process, you've participated.
Well,
You responded.
so then I'll drop back and say,
That's my thought. I don't mean to step on the commissioner's toes, but that's my thought.
so then I would drop back
Mhm.
and say, then my recommendation will be for us to issue a directive with a little restoration remediation, but specifically the positioning and erection of some posts with the no cut, no disturb sign on them, so we can clearly provide some protection. Now, can actually see from the change in vegetation on the ground here, you can actually see that this fingerling of wetlands, even though it does widen as it starts going down gradient, it's working its way down towards, I think it's Stonehenge Circle or something like that, or Stonehenge Drive or something like that. The paddock fencing of the outdoor sand ring and stuff is actually going away, so they're kind of diverging. So the real need for some signage is probably like 100 feet along here, and then going up in this direction, maybe 60 feet or so, just to establish where the no cut, no disturb line actually is, and so there's some guidance. And of course, again, that needs to be adjusted a little bit to take into account the fact that the fencing got erected a little close, as well as leaving the ability to prune some of the shrubbery there, so that it doesn't grow in the fence.
Seems like a reasonable plan.
And there are also, I was alerted to the fact that there are some standing dead trees out there, so we'd also like to get permission to cut or prune as appropriate the trees that are posing a risk to either the turnout buildings or the horses themselves in the paddock, and I knew that would be okay. So
What's that, Kurt?
Or the people that ride them, or lends them, or whatever.
Well, that seems reasonable. Is that acceptable to you, to install some?
Yeah, no, I
Posts.
would rather that we do, because I usually have somebody come and do that, and
Right.
when it looks like when he did this, he either turned around or something, but stuff got pushed.
That's what they do.
All right, and it,
yeah,
right,
basically
so
it's
it
an
would be much
area as
more
big as this
clear.
table, but that definitely got intruded into.
But the area where it could happen is a little bigger, as Brent was saying. So if
Yeah.
we put posts, or if you put posts in all along there, the
Mhm.
back of the original paddocks and then along the new ones, that would
Mhm.
seem to do it. We have little signs that we'll give you to put on top of the post that says, what do they say? Don't
No
intrude.
cut, no disturbance.
No cut, no disturb, with a little animal on it.
Right.
So how many posts are we talking about?
Well, I was thinking.
I don't know, I would ask to be able to field position this and decide, but
Okay.
like I'm estimating if it's 100 feet in one direction and 50 feet to 60 feet in the other direction, lots of times we space out 25 feet on center, so we're probably talking 8 to 10 posts
Okay.
at a maximum. It would just help.
6, actually. 6 or
Pardon?
7, maybe even 6,
Yeah,
because it's an
yeah,
L.
it could be. I just,
Right.
I forgot to measure how far down the 25-foot no cut, no disturb was actually gonna come out and be in close proximity to our paddock fence, so I'm
Right.
just using that rough 100-foot estimate, like everybody throws out 100 feet, but,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it might be a little longer than that, it might be a little less than that, but the idea would be to have a pragmatic implementation so that your maintenance folks are given some guidance and that they know, can just look from one post to the other and say, okay, yeah, I'm not supposed to be going in there and cutting this up.
Line up the machine with the next post. And
Yeah, I think it's, well, do you actually go in there with a machine, or do they? Usually I think
They
they would
have a-
just hand prune, yeah.
They can, it depends on where it is, and there's one spot where they can go in with I don't know what it is, but something that does, make a path.
Okay.
But this would be handy to have something, because I've stated, from the fence, you have to stay 5 feet from the fence, but if I mean.
One shrub
You
looks
don't-
like another shrub.
If you don't
Yeah.
have it marked off,
Yeah.
it's,
And then you're not there always when he does it, so.
right. Now, who would put the 4x4 posts on the ground?
Oh, you would have to
You
find
would be
someone
I
to do
would
that,
responsible
yeah.
for
okay.
it.
And then-
You can make them out of, or you can have them made out of, really, a lot of things.
Mhm.
Concrete works, but lasts forever, but it's expensive. Granite looks great, but it's very expensive.
Wow, yeah.
Wooden posts are fine.
Okay, and I
Yeah.
assume it's.
Treated 8 feet, well, again, I'll give you a little
Oh,
sketch.
okay.
Yeah.
And basically, it's based on presumption that the most commonly available length of 4x4 posts is 8 feet, and so you go get an 8-footer and you can trim it and do an angle cut on the top so that the rainwater doesn't soak in and off the top as quickly that way by having an angle cut. But I actually have a little sketch that I'll provide you that gives some guidance on doing that, and then someone would have to dig the hole and set it down in the hole and tamp it in and then put the little sign on.
Right. The signs, Brent has a supply of the
Yeah,
signs.
we provide the
You
signs.
provide the posts, we provide the signs.
Okay.
But in my view, there's no real point in asking you to reapply to get a permit for something that we pretty clearly would have permitted in much the way you built it and possibly exactly the way you built it. That seems like an exercise in
Common sense.
common sense or in utility doing it, right?
Well, I wasn't sure, because
No,
again, we've had another applicant located just up the street from us who we had do after the fact permitting for.
Well, yeah, and the other side of that is if we do that for everybody all the time, nobody will get permits because they'll figure they'll just come in if they get caught, and so we don't. But I don't sense that's what you were trying to do.
No, and in fact, when that ended up happening over, I had 2 big dead trees. I took those 2 big oak trees I was trying to save because they were kind of twin oaks that were kind of cool there by the driveway. Those needed to go. Then there's a bunch of poplars that keep breaking off on the top, so those ended up being taken out. But it was over a number of years that then would do that. And then a lot of the stuff out there is scrub brush. It's about this high. That's the, I don't know, woody stemmed, red stemmed something that grows up in my, around my septic area that is not pleasant to deal with because it's hard to get out of there. But anyhow, I don't know if that's actually in the 100-foot or outside the 100-foot, but that is constantly sort of being taken out of there. 'Cause, yeah.
I have a couple of curiosity questions that don't particularly germane to what we've been talking about, but when you first came before us, there was some discussion about that old barn that's on the fence on the street, and as I recall, it was sort of understood that it really wasn't safe and you were using it for hay storage or something.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
I'm now not using it for hay storage because I'm worried about the foundation of it. We're trying to hope that the building stays intact until I can do something with it. I'm worried because there's a wall underneath that ended up, it's a brick wall that I think is probably a supporting wall. And it was just a little room that was in there, maybe a cold cellar or something, but that brick wall with all the water, because of the hill next door, all the water that goes into my cellar down there collapsed because it would freeze and it would heave and then it would thaw and then it finally collapsed. So I think we put 1 pole up there just ourselves to just try and, in case it really was a supporting wall, which I think it was. So I'm sort of in fear of if we put anything in there, losing the barn. So it just has, a lot of, there's no lawnmower, there's junk in there right now. It needs to be cleaned out, and it does need to be, I think it should be moved. I think the cellar should be filled in maybe and it moved. I don't know how to, that's another thing that I need to ask somebody how to deal with that.
It just, the barn looks like it might collapse at any point. So.
Yeah, I'm concerned with the barn. It's not,
Other question I have, again, it's a curiosity question, is to the east of that, there's a residence that looks to be on this piece of property. Is that a house, a home?
and
And there's a lot of Maffey trucks right along there, or am I thinking?
oh, right, that used to be part of the property, and the White House, the only 3-story White House on that road, is owned by the Maffeys, I believe, and they bought off like a 2-acre parcel or an acre parcel off of that lot.
They
Out of
subdivided.
this
Yeah, so that,
they carved it.
exactly,
Yeah,
that's,
carved it out of this.
yep.
Does that include the barn or not?
No,
it does
no,
not
the barn,
include the barn.
it's 16 foot off the barn.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, who do I go to figure out how to do that with the barn? If I wanted to fill the cellar in and move the thing forward, or to put it on more solid ground somewhere? Yeah, I don't want to move it
It's not a-
anywhere else on the property
it's not
except for
jurisdictional,
closer
is
to
it?
the
Or is
road.
Building
No.
inspector might be.
Not for us, well, you want to come to us then.
So it's not, it wouldn't
Building
have anything
inspector.
to do with your stuff?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah,
depending
it's
on
pretty
where.
forward on the property.
No, so I think it would just be building inspector.
Okay.
In order to get a
I don't know if
permit
we've
to
ever
do that,
dealt anything
a
like
lot of
that.
whole bunch of town boards would have to sign off, including this one.
Yeah, yeah.
We'd have to sign off, but we would just routinely sign off, because
There's nothing.
what happens is Brent looks at it, determines it doesn't impact a wetland, and just signs the permit.
Okay.
I have no idea what the building permit requirements for that sort of a job would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, well, but it's tossed up, you know, you don't wanna lose the building, but we're having people look at it at the moment, and it's fairly pricey, it seems to be, to move it. Well, it's fairly pricey to leave it where it is and do the fieldstone foundation over again and put it up where, you know, a little bit better, where it needs to be. There's one corner of it, of the sill that's kind of rotted out there. And the rest of it is, you know, as the water continues in there, it's starting to just, the fieldstone foundation's starting to become pretty poor. So my only thought is a slab, and I don't think you can, you know, I mean, you have to move it forward to do that, I think, and,
I'm sure there are no cheap solutions.
no. But I prefer not to lose the barn, if we can say that.
All right, so I think what we would be considering here would be a directive to install a field-determined number of posts with
Slight restoration of that impacted BBW gouge.
right,
Yeah.
and that's it, right?
Right.
Okay.
But you also, so basically, to succinctly guide you here, confirmation of the issuance of the enforcement order, amending of the enforcement order to reflect the impacts that have been field validated, and the issuance of a directive, as we discussed.
The one with the silt fence that you said is pretty much buried, just gonna leave that there?
We're gonna try and get it.
Yeah, well, I was advising her to, you know, what can be pulled up, to take a utility knife and slice it off. Some of it is pretty well buried. It's not the, I mean, the good news is it doesn't appear to be the situation where it just totally leaned over and then smothered everything 2 feet wide by, you know, X amount. It appears that it just fell down and that now has been just basically all buried and tamped down in the dirt. But some of the places where you can see it, if it can be lifted up, you just slice it off. It wasn't that noticeable, so I don't know that there's an awful lot of it that can actually be retrieved.
So do I have a motion to, let's see, affirm the enforcement order, amend the enforcement order, and issue a directive in accordance with the discussion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Motion carries.
How many horses do you have there now?
There's, right now, I think there's 19. We can fluctuate a little bit, but usually right around there. We have somebody that just built a place in Gloucester, which is unusual, but she bought 2 horses and moved into Gloucester, which is, I don't know where there's a piece of land that she did this, but she built a 4-stall barn there, and she's tickled pink to have it, so.
Actually, Gloucester's a huge place.
Yeah, she's been
Not the
looking at
city
this for a
part,
long
but
time.
there's some wide open space there.
Yeah. So we talked a bit about some of the materials, but do I get a list from you?
I would not do anything yet. I would allow me, because now they've given me a whole bunch of homework to do, so
Okay.
I'll have to do some homework and then.
But you should have
Send
it
you a
not too
thing.
long.
Okay, all right, but it's
But part of that
something
will
that I'll get.
involve,
Okay.
Yeah.
part of that will involve my requesting that I make a visit. And we'll stake out locations for the posts. And at that time, I can give you the sketch for the posts, and we can probably make a real short, quote-unquote, materials list for that, okay?
All right, and then also what material, we talked about, peat moss?
Yeah.
Going back in there,
Loam,
so-
yeah, some topsoil mixed with either peat moss or composted cow manure to make it organic, and pulling out those rocks out of there and then refilling that with that material, and then just letting it naturally grow back in.
Right, okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Sounds good, well, thank you, and I wouldn't try and do anything bad as it is. It's been a good project, and I've been happy to be able to do it there, so.
I hope your barn project turns out well, too.
Thank you.
That sounds like the most challenging one of all to me.
It is, I know, well, and I hate to see something like that. It's a nice old barn.
Something old and nice like that, yeah.
Right.
And it's very dominant on the lot, so it would change the look of the place an awful lot.
And I think we're gonna get traffic, and I think it's just, the street will no longer be sort of, you know,
Right.
we won't be buffered from the street, so.
Right.
That really, and it'd be nice to be able to use it again. Not for horses, for storage and such, but, all right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great. This is the 9:15 item on the agenda. A new request for certificate of compliance, 630331, 862 Haverhill Street, map 4, parcel 1, EHB Real Estate Trust, Donald H. Boson, trustee. 862 Haverhill.
Yeah. This is the two, I think they're apartments, I don't think they're condos. I think they're apartment buildings.
I know where you mean.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that picture tells you exactly what it is.
And they put in a septic system. I'm honestly not clear as to whether the septic system services both of those buildings or only one. It
Just past Oxford Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's entirely located on the lot for 862.
The septic.
The septic system and its field.
When did we permit this? I don't remember it at all.
I don't either.
Hold on a second. The order of conditions was issued February 12th, 2001.
Well, that's why I don't remember it.
That's why you don't remember it, because I'm not sure you had any involvement in it. And so it was
Judy
quite
remembers every bit of it.
You remember.
Every detail.
Well, again, this is
Give us a rundown.
this is another one of those that, you know, I just discovered that we had this old order, and to make it even more challenging, the order hadn't been recorded. And so I had to request, it's still owned by the same person who had ownership and control when they did the replacement system. So I had to require them to go record the order, which they did. And then they also contacted Hancock Associates, who had also done the design and the permitting for when it got put in. And so now we have the certificate of compliance request. And my memo has kind of I turned up kind of a strange thing on this one. And that is that for whatever reason, there was a condition written in, number 33, that reads, maintenance plans for the repaired septic system shall be submitted to the Conservation Commission biannually.
Why?
Well, a better question is, what in the world did they think that's the responsibility of the Board of Health? That's not, that's not anything the commission has any authority or jurisdiction over, so.
What were you guys thinking?
What was the agent at the time?
2001.
We'll find out in a second.
Well, actually, we won't, because apparently whoever the agent was at that time apparently wasn't a notary, so it was done by the planning board administrator at the time, did the notarization, so I don't know who
Oh, well.
So basically,
Well, don't go chasing him around for that, please.
well, I'm not going to. I was looking for ongoing conditions, so
Yes.
I'm
You found one.
just stating in the memo that,
Yep.
this is an ongoing condition that should not be
That's right.
at all. So in the certificate of compliance request, I am only recommending possible passage of complete certificate of compliance and just leave it at that, no ongoing conditions. There wasn't any no cut, no disturb at the time, nothing like that. They are offset an appropriate distance, and in my site visit, I couldn't see any signs that there was any type of intrusion or anything going on. You actually go up onto the plateau top of the field, and that appears to be where they put their picnic tables and play their badminton and whatever else they want to do, and then it slopes down, and it was positioned just outside bordering land subject to flooding. And so since you have to go down that slope, it's then kind of a little bit bushy, but it's not real thick. But it doesn't appear that anyone ever goes down there because they've got this nice flat lawn area on top of the field, so why should they go any further?
All right, well then, I need a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance.
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? It's unanimous.
Okay, who's next?
Permits and enforcement.
Well, the only thing is, 54 Havel Street. I have been waiting and waiting and waiting.
Is this Mr.
This is Schmidt,
Mr. Schmidt? Yeah.
represented by Mr. Jack Rivers.
Really, you didn't get anything to that last email?
Well, I did, but the problem was, let's see, got it in here. Pretty sure. Well, I only received electronic copies, number one, and I received one at a scale of 1 inch to 30 feet, and one at a scale of, what is it, 1 inch to maybe 20, I think? Yeah, 1 to 20 and 1 to 30. Well, the problem was, when I looked at them, I found that originally he had titled the plans 255 because that's the address of the son, who was apparently handling the billing. So he didn't appropriately title it 255 Haverhill Street, which it wasn't. Well, he changed the title, which is fine, but the house where he put the number showing the side of the structure is still represented as 255. So I requested that that be changed. And I also had asked for a table that tabulated the bordering vegetated wetlands impacts and then the no cut, no disturbance zone impact, so we just had that in a table, and that wasn't on here. And the no cut, no disturbance line disappears halfway back on this plan, literally halfway back. It disappears, and I don't know whether it becomes part of the boundary line or where it goes. So anyway, so I had finally received these like the last of April. So on May 1st, after I did my review, I sent out an email, you know, asking if the plans could be corrected and when we might anticipate receiving them, as well as reminding that I had asked for printed out hard copies, not just electronic files. I got absolutely no response.
From Mary?
Well, Jack Rivers called me.
JF.
Yeah, this isn't Mary Rimmer's responsibility. Jack Rivers hired this Paul of PFJ Surveyors, and
It's a survey.
and he had contacted and said that he had family issues or whatever, deaths in the family, and that I would, you know, see these by the end of April. Well, so I finally did see some of what I asked for at the end of April, just electronic copies. And now I've gotten absolutely no response. Mr. Rivers called me up all apologetic and said that he would make sure that I'd get these and everything else, so I haven't even heard from Mr. Rivers, so I called him today and
Yeah, light a fire under him.
I basically did. I hope I wasn't speaking, being presumptuous, but I said the commission would consider issuing fines if we did not get these revised plans, because they're not able to do any of the planting or anything. We're on hold trying to get these plans, so we have, you know, an adequate description of the impacts to the site.
Yeah, it's time to get it done.
Yeah, right now is the time to start putting the stuff into the ground.
So did Mr.
As well as I, you know, was specifically waiting for these to issue the directive, because I would reference these in
Yeah.
the directive, so.
So Mr. Rivers sounded suitably like he was feeling a little heat.
Well, he did 2 weeks ago, but I haven't gotten any return to my voicemail message today, so I don't,
Mr. Rivers, if you're watching, you know,
I think he lives in Wakefield, so
Yeah.
not sure.
well, I don't, it seems like it's the last thing we want to do is find somebody for this. They were trying to be cooperative, and we understand Mr. Schmidt's situation is a little difficult, but, I mean, what are we supposed to do?
Well, but we ran, you know, but for months I heard nothing from this surveyor.
Right.
And then when I finally, you know, nudged them a little bit, then I got this thing, oh, I had death in the family and stuff like this, and I'm like, well, did you ever think of letting somebody know?
And
Because not even Jack Rivers knew, and he's the guy who apparently directly hired him and worked with him.
Right.
Mary Rimmer certainly didn't know. I mean, nobody, the Schmidts didn't know there was any issue with the surveyor.
Well, how about if we put on the agenda for May 28th, consideration of a fine if plans are not submitted in time for review by that hearing.
Mm.
I think, you know, often words like consideration of a fine gets people's attention. And I really don't want to fine them, but.
No, and in one sense, there's no reason to, but one of the links in their chain
Yeah.
is kind of letting them down here, and
Right.
whether they need to decide whether they need to cut off the relationship and go to somebody else.
But that's hard, because they gotta pay for the work twice in that
Yeah,
case, and that's, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to the situation is.
I think Mr. Schmidt's son and Mr. Rivers were clearly wanting to cooperate, as I recall.
Right.
So I don't think it's them, and
Right.
certainly Mary Rimmer did her job.
Yeah.
Because she always does.
Yeah.
So it's gotta be the surveyor.
I mean, maybe I should proceed and just issue the directive and.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have to redo the work, potentially.
Well, I mean, you know, the depiction of the impacts is accurate and correct on the plans.
Well, if you
You know,
think
the
you
impacted
can,
areas is correct.
if you think you can do that,
It's
you
just
can do that.
it's just one of these foolish things that, you know, it's like sending somebody to the grocery store because you've got a recipe and you need 8 items to make it, and they come back with 6.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do here?
Well, yeah, you could skip the eggs, but it probably won't come out very well.
Anyway, so
Okay, well, if
that's the only,
that seems like
that's the only thing I need to.
sensible thing. Send them a letter, an email and a letter saying we we're gonna consider a fine the next time around, next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Is that the only enforcement? Or it's gonna
Oh,
go-
gosh, you know, it's been,
Mr. Coughlin has kept us plenty busy with enforcement.
Enforcement.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I can say other than I believe that, you know, I've tried not to generate paperwork for the sense of generating paperwork, but in all my years, and I haven't talked to anyone yet who's experienced an applicant doing this, actually moving a previously established and surveyed wetlands flag in order to try and get out of quote unquote a regulated area. So I did spend a little time thinking and then, you know, talking to some folks and then coming up with that response to it.
Right.
Which is definitely out of the ordinary, but I don't know what else.
Yeah. We didn't get any argument from them.
Well, no, and I mean, sometimes I think the fact that you provide good documentation in a response to something that you close off, whereas if you just sort of, you know, tried to handle it and just talk about it verbally, that they might, you know, think, okay, I can wiggle things here if I just try something else. That may be, maybe I shouldn't be saying that.
No,
Yeah,
it
I
could
don't
be
know.
true.
I don't know what to think, so
But
I try to always substantiate, you know, like with the pictures, it's just very, I don't normally take photographs of the flag points that I measure things from. It's just kind of good in this situation that I did, because I was able to pull it right up on my phone and say, look, this is where the flag was.
Yeah, but you also, it was so recent that you even had your own independent memory of it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, plus you could see there was a discoloration all around because it was a hardwood and they moved it onto a soft film.
One of the projects, right?
Yeah, well, I guess because it's in the shade there, it hadn't been turned too brittle like they do in the sun, so.
wouldn't be surprised if it's a crime. But that's not our business. Yeah. All right, anything else? Okay, so motion to adjourn. Second? Second. All in favor? All right, see you all on May 28th.